season just one day later. Remember, they play next Friday night against the Chargers in Brazil, but they will be without a key offensive player. Graz, the story on Rashee Rice.
Yes, suspended for the first 6 games of the season. This is the result of a settlement between Rice and the NFL. The NFL wanted to impose a suspension. Rice thought it was too long. They couldn't come to an agreement, so they scheduled a hearing for September 30th. But they have avoided that hearing because they resumed talks and settled on 6 games.
So this is what we're looking at for the start of their season. They open, as I mentioned, in Brazil with the Chargers. Then look at that, the Super Bowl rematch in week 2. Giants, then the Ravens, which is a monster matchup. And the 6 games concludes with the Detroit Lions. So this is a pretty tough start to the season. How, if at all, does it impact the way you view Kansas City this year?
Well, I mean, they played much of last year without
Rashee Rice.
without Rashee Rice. And I think that a lot of the reason why we don't think highly of their receivers now was because Mahomes wasn't being protected. I think the protection changes the way that Xavier Worthy impacts the team. Like, you remember week 1, Xavier Worthy took that reverse, and we all were like, oh, they got something here. He's a deep threat. You can't protect your quarterback, then you can't really use him in the way that you want to. So I think that they might be in a better position than we assume, not because of the receivers as much as because we finally have some protection from him.
Well, I would say this about Rashee Rice. He is the person that has become the security blanket for Patrick Mahomes outside of Travis Kelce. He's the person that's supposed to take over that number 1 role when Travis Kelce finally gets done with playing. To not have him out there to, catch the balls intermediate. You think about the Baltimore Ravens game, the first game of the year last year.
Yeah.
Getting him matched up with linebackers and safeties, and Patrick Mahomes can just pick the ball up and just throw it to him. Football's not that hard, and Rashee Rice is going to pick up 15, 20 yards. That's what they're going to miss with him. But I do agree with Dom. The protection is going to be better in Kansas City. That's also going to allow those guys to get downfield and take the top off.
This is still a positive outcome for the Chiefs relative to having the thing hanging over the second half of the season, not knowing when the suspension would start, not knowing how long it was going to be. Now they know, and they can plan around it. So the schedule looks tough, but at least they have some certainty.
And I want to show you just how tough this opening game you should expect it to be. Can I put up C38? This number Hembo sent to me yesterday. In his 5 seasons as an NFL head coach, Jim Harbaugh has never lost on the opening game. He has covered the number in every opening game, and he's won those 5 games by an average of almost 11 points. So week 1 against the Chargers figures to be tough no matter what.
I'd be interested in how often that opening game was against a team that had been to the previous 3 Super Bowls.
And how many of them were being played in Sao Paulo, Brazil?
Like, it seems like there's some factors.
A lot of variables, but Harbaugh remains the constant. Okay, and then one more in this slow-moving hurry-up. We stay in the AFC, the 2025 first-round draft pick. Graz, what is the latest you were hearing on Travis Hunter's much-anticipated regular season debut?
The Jaguars say he was back at practice yesterday and moving at full speed. Now, my understanding is the Jaguars aren't really practicing at full speed this week. They're doing some walkthrough stuff, but he had missed several practices and a couple of preseason games. The fact that he's back out there and is on track to play week 1 and is on track to play both sides of the ball in week 1 is a positive for the Jaguars.
So our Jaguars reporter was tracking all of the snaps
Mike Duraco.
in practice, and it was remarkable how equal they were. He took 188 snaps in practice on offense and 176 on defense. So they really have been, at least in practice, using him equally on both sides.
They believe that they drafted a player who changes the math. That is the phrase that their GM, James Gladstone, used when I was talking to him about this a month ago. They feel like he can play both ways. How much on either side is what they have been using training camp to kind of try and work through and figure out, and I think it could vary and change as the season goes along.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if game 1 he's not the starter on offense and the starter on defense. Like, I think that's the reason why they did this. Part of this we have to admit or understand that this is about the spectacle that the Travis Hunter is going to bring. So they're going to try everything they can to make sure he's out there as much as possible within reason, because I think they know it's a long season.
Harry, I mean, I'm trying to, look, I would love this to work. I don't want to be a wet blanket. I don't want to be the one saying this can't be done. But there is a part of me that thinks it can't be done because I keep hearing from people like you, Harry, how hard it is to play wide receiver in the NFL. And from you, Dominique, how hard it is to play corner in the NFL. The idea that someone is going to play both on a regular basis strikes me as just too much to ask.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it 100% on both sides of the football. You have to pick and choose your battles. That's what it's all about, and have an extreme plan for Travis Hunter. Now, I would say this, week 1 versus the Carolina Panthers, that's a game, Dom, that you might want to go out there and allow him to play both sides of the football.
Maybe. You know what? I thought of this yesterday. Not that it's an original thought, but it sort of crystallized in my head. Changing the math could also mean 1 week, here's the way I think it could work. 1 week he's a wide receiver. You look at the matchups, you see where you think he's more effective. 1 week he's going to play wide receiver and dabble in defense. The next week he's going to play defense and dabble in offense. That would still be playing both ways, just not taking 120 snaps a game.
Right, and maybe it's a sliding scale, right? And maybe it depends on the injury situation on the Jaguars. If the wide receiver room is banged up, maybe he leans more that way, or vice versa. So, yeah, I think ideally they want to have confidence in his ability to play them both, so they have that flexibility that you're talking about. And by the way, they don't mind if their opponent spends part of their practice week wondering what they're going to get.
I mean, if you end up with 60 or so snaps, then you've played a game. And I think that playing both sides, you use different parts of your body and different muscles. Like, it could turn out, if they play him in the way that you're talking about, that it could work.
I just love this story because, like, the players are the wet blankets in this story, and I'm excited to see this. I want to see this happen.
We have flipped the script. And by the way, the old run, the hurry up with our insider Dan Graziano, and as people join us here, Dan, at the bottom of the hour, we opened the show this morning with a feeling that a resolution between Micah Parsons and the Cowboys of some sort is imminent.
Yeah, I think so. Now, I'm not hedging because anything is still possible here. Micah Parsons could get a long-term deal from the Cowboys. Doesn't seem likely, considering they haven't really done any work on it lately, but sometimes things come together quickly. He could show up and play on his current deal. He could get traded. There are a lot of possibilities floating out there, but I do think we're at a point where in the next couple of days we could see some sort of resolution.
Mike Tannenbaum jumped in with us at the beginning of the show to point out that in this new NFL world in which there were only 3 preseason games, what was manufactured is something of a little bye week or maybe more like a business week. And so it's no coincidence that this is the week the Trey Hendrickson deal got done and the week that the Terry McLaurin deal
Kyle
got done.
Hamilton signed his extension with the Ravens yesterday.
And other you know, less reported pieces of NFL business get done. So here's the one. It's going to something has to happen. Even the Cowboys, as circus-oriented as they may be, have to recognize they can't have this hanging over their heads like this when they go play the defending champs a week from tonight.
We all talk about how the deadlines will spur some action, and we're getting closer and closer to what appears to be the first legitimate deadline is that week 1 game or Thursday night game against the defending champs. They want it to be understood where Micah's going to be, if he's going to be here, if he's going to be on the field, if he's going to be on the sideline. Those decisions need to be cleared up right now. I think, like we mentioned, Micah's flying to different places to get his back checked out to make sure that's in tip-top condition, which I choose to be optimistic, making sure that his back is in good shape because Jerry is going to come to his senses and give him the deal that he deserves.
Well, I mean, does that presuppose that they play the game and they give up like 52 points? Right? I mean, does that? I keep coming back to that. Right. But if they go out there and they get thoroughly humiliated on the opening night, which was not my expectation, but certainly is not outside of the realm of possibility, that could create a little bit of momentum on Micah's side.
Yeah, you talk about like shifting the leverage. That shifts the leverage really quickly. So that works out well if that's what happens. And I don't think that Micah would be rooting for that, obviously, but it does change the way we think.
Go ahead, Harry.
I don't think it's week 1 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I think if they lose week 2 versus the New York Giants, that's when things get real for the Dallas Cowboys because they're expected to beat the New York football Giants.
Right.
If they lose that matchup, then the ball is really in Micah Parsons' court, in my opinion.
That's a really interesting way to put that or to think about that. I remember when I asked Joe Fortenbaugh, our gambling expert, about how the Micah thing, the holdout, impacted their win total. He said, look, that first game is a game that you anticipate them losing anyway, so it doesn't change the way that the gamblers look at that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think yes. I think that would be the way if Micah wanted to push it and get Jerry to cave in and do the deal Micah wants as opposed to the deal Jerry thought they had done in March, then that's the way to do it. At this point, I'm just questioning whether the Cowboys let it get that far or whether something has to happen in the meantime.
I wonder a little bit, if we're saying this is about ego and pride, how has that changed? Like, there's not enough losing that will cause, I would think, the ego and pride to be set aside. And I know we can point back to the Emmitt Smith, but we all grow. Yeah, we all grow and change, and this is. It appears to be a different Jerry Jones than it was back then.
That was 33 years ago, for the record. So we'll see where that is. All right, we're working sort of a slow hurry up. That's our top story this morning, but there are other big ones.